Hi, my name is Jeff Allen from Allen Brothers. I'm introducing the first session, Enhancing the Customer Shopping Experience, with Gary Henderson. The session is entitled Enhancing the Customer Shopping Experience. We're fortunate to have Gary Henderson, the owner of Facility Solutions, LLC, heading our discussion today. Over his 35-year career, Gary has helped businesses throughout the Mid-Atlantic region improve the appearance of their buildings and develop cost-saving programs. He has conducted hundreds of training programs, sharing his experience and expertise. With the opening of Citizens Bank Park in 2004, he was responsible for developing stadium maintenance systems, many of which are still in use today. In 2013, Gary founded Facility Cleaning Solutions to provide building owners and property managers with systems for creating and maintaining high standards within their building environment. Gary, thank you for talking with us today, and take it away, Gary.
Jeff, thank you very much for the introduction. You might notice the background on my computer screen. I'm calling from my home office, and it used to be my daughter's bedroom. So if you see some family pictures up there, that's part of the Henderson family. So thanks for the opportunity today. Just a little bit more of my background. Being in the cleaning industry for practically my entire career, I decided in 2013, like Jeff had mentioned, to start Facility Cleaning Solutions. And basically what I was trying to do is to be an independent and distributor neutral organization focused on providing consulting services to managers and owners in the cleaning of their facilities. Most of my career, I felt that this was an area that was overlooked, and I really felt that I could be of service, like I said, to owners and facility managers. Jeff mentioned about Citizens Bank Park. When they opened the stadium in 2004, I was very fortunate to be involved in the building of the standards and the products and the programs at the stadium, and it was a great experience. And if any of you are Phillies fans down there, or that are in the audience this afternoon, I wanted to share with you a little trivia about the stadium. Has about 1.5 million square feet of cleaning and areas that require maintenance. It might be hard to believe, but they have 62 public restrooms, 783 sinks, toilets, and urinals that have to be cleaned after every game. So it's a monumental project with 40-some thousand fans sometimes being in attendance. Naturally, we'd all like to be in Philadelphia right now, but I wanted to share a little trivia with you on the stadium. The other thing, just to mention to you quickly, if you ever go down to the stadium, the field is actually 28 feet below grade. So it actually sits in a recessed area from the parking lot. So as far as my presentation today, the cleaning industry historically has not been very glamorous until 2020, when we were impacted by the COVID-19 virus. And what is happening in the last couple months, there's entirely new standards for cleaning, and there's a lot of things happening in the industry that I'm going to share with you with some of the slides that I will present with. Give you a little snapshot of the industry. The manufacturers and distributors that are in the industry are historically based in the United States. There are some regional distributors and manufacturers, and we also get some imports from China and other places overseas. There's an organization called ISSA, which is the International Sanitary Supply Association. And just about every manufacturer, building service contractor, or anybody in the industry is a member of the association. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but they put out a guide every year, and they have a convention. And if you have interest in joining ISSA, I can walk you through the process. As far as the manufacturers and the distributors, the way they interact, manufacturers sell to distribution, and then distribution provides inventory, services, local customers. They provide sales representation, and then they would also provide you with pricing and pricing contracts depending on the products that you buy from them. So that's just a little snapshot of what the industry looks like. Okay, when I was selected to make this presentation, I put together some observations relating to supermarkets and convenience stores. And some of those conclusions: number one, you've all invested heavily in your stores and your building. Number two, you're trying to maintain customer relationships. So you have repeat customers. And then you're also, I believe, trying to generate new customers by carving out market share within the areas that you service. Three things that store cleanliness is impacted by. I think most of you are have your locations in Pennsylvania. We do have the change of seasons, which we all know from November to March can be quite challenging. And then we also have your customers, employees, and delivery of merchandise and supplies to your stores that here again it's impacted. And then last but not least, we have gravity, and the last thing you would want in your stores is dust on your merchandise, but gravity does gravitate to your store shelving and your floor surfaces. So one of the things that I did to gather some information on this presentation, and this goes back to January and February, when I just started asking people outside of product and price, what are the important factors relating to your grocery and convenience store shopping experience? And it basically fell into three areas, the feedback that I received. One is customer service, two is convenience, and three is cleanliness, not necessarily in that order. But having good personnel that are focused on service, the convenience of your location, and cleanliness all factored into the feedback that I received. I put together a slide here. If you've never done a study on the cleaning of your facilities, cleaning of your stores, this is pretty much a national average. 8% in supplies, 2% is spent on cleaning equipment, and then it's hard to believe, but 90% of the time, or the expenditures of your budget, is spent with labor. I just wanted to share with you that information that might be helpful to you. Okay, so with my presentation in the last couple months, and there's a lot of focus on cleanliness, I thought it would be a great way to share some current information and some information that might be helpful with the cleaning of your stores. If you think about your front entrances, it's really no different than the real estate industry. in your homes and where you live, you want to make every effort to try to enhance the curb appeal. I have a couple slides here of some things that I took pictures of just to give you an idea of how curb appeal can be impacted in a negative way. If you look at the receptacle on the left, they can be unsightly with cigarette butts. If you look at the convenience store in the middle, there's a little bit of clutter with decals and different advertisements. And the other thing you might notice is the sidewalk. Where that dark area is, that's a traffic lane, and that can impact a customer's perception of the cleanliness within your store. And then if you look at the receptacle on the right, the liner is oversized for the receptacle, but these are just all things to keep in mind relative to your curb appeal with your front entrance. Okay, I mentioned, or in this slide, I mentioned that 80% of the soil load that enters through your entrances or loading areas comes through your front door or your loading areas. And the key to maintaining a high standard is soil containment. And I put a slide here. There was a national study done by a matting company where it demonstrates the amount of soil removed with the entrance mats coming into your stores. And the feedback from this slide is that if you have 30 feet of matting, it can remove 100% of the soil being tracked in from the outside. So the takeaway on this slide is you want to make every effort to evaluate your front entrance system. I can't stress enough wet floor signs, specifically in inclement weather. Also, if there's a slip fall case, slip fall cases can run tens of thousands of dollars with court costs. I did do some reading on slip falls recently, and there have been some cases that have settled for upwards of $500,000. But having a yellow caution sign, wet floor signs, I can't stress that enough, especially during the bad weather. Okay, next I wanted to zero in on restrooms. And this was actually a study conducted by Rubbermaid Commercial Products. And you can see some of the data there relating to public's perception of restrooms. 20% grab a paper towel, 40% flush with their feet, 60% say they don't sit or touch anything in the public restroom, 30% avoid using public restrooms altogether. And I think the important one here is 4 out of 5 patrons were concerned about germs in public restrooms. And I think with the COVID-19 situation, we're probably 5 out of 5 patrons are concerned when they use a restroom. And here's a couple pictures of things that impact the customer, whether it's a mop bucket, a closed urinal, trash in the restroom, receptacles that haven't been emptied. I think pretty much everyone has experienced a restroom that has a lot of clutter in it. With the restrooms, and if anybody has ever done any remodeling, it can be quite costly. But you can see the impact that a good appearance with good lighting, good flooring, the impact that it can have in the overall perception of a customer's visit. One of the more challenging experiences that I had was working with Hershey Park, and they had on average when they're open over 30,000 guests in their park that use the restrooms on a frequent basis. And the one thing I wanted to mention that you want to keep in mind relating to your restroom programs, utilize the drains with the cleaning process, whether it's utilizing a pressure washer for cleaning, or using a squeegee to flush down your cleaner. That can be very helpful with the process. The second bullet point, if it touches the customer, consider a high quality towel, tissue, hand soap. There's a lot of cheap paper towels and toilet tissue out there, but it definitely has an impact on the customer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the black lights, but up in the upper right-hand corner is a black light, and it looks like a flashlight, but the great thing about it, it can identify urine when the lights are turned off in a restroom. So it's kind of a handy tool. They run about $25, $30. But sometimes when you walk into a restroom, you can't identify an odor. Black lights come in handy. The slide in the lower right-hand corner, grout is another area that accumulates dirt because it's a recessed area. And I can't stress enough to try to keep your grout clean, and there are machines that can help with that process. And then the last thing you might want to consider, especially with the COVID-19 situation, installing no-touch systems, whether it's faucets or urinals, doorways. The trend in our industry right now is definitely no-touch programs. Going to touch on the supply closets. And the reason I want to mention that, there's a lot of products out there that you can choose from. And I can't stress enough, if you can standardize and consolidate everything from your receptacles to your cleaners, your towels, your tissue, you really don't need that many products to maintain a building. And it kind of has a tendency to be an area of clutter. So organizing those supplies, I can't stress enough. It also shows your commitment to creating a high standard in your stores. Okay, I'm going to give you a little overview of cleaners, because there's a lot of different cleaners out there. But I just want to spend a little bit of time on this. You can see from the slide, there's a number of different classifications of cleaners, whether it's an all-purpose or degreaser. Maybe you've heard some of these terms. Disinfectants are getting a lot of attention right now. But basically, cleaners are surfactants, perfumes, detergents, and if you look at a label, there's a lot of water in the product. And then there's primarily three types of soils that you'd want to try to remove in your buildings. It falls into acidic soil, which is dirt. Animal fats and protein would be meat in the meat processing area. And then your petroleum-based soil, which are any soils that come from oil. That might be in a parking lot area or something tracked into your store. The variables that impact soil removal, there's what is called the TAC principle. And there's 4 variables that impact the removal of soil in your buildings. Time is how long the cleaner comes in contact with the soil, agitation, how you're going to clean the surface, whether it's with a floor pad or a mop, pressure washer. Concentration is the concentration of the cleaner, and the last variable is temperature. And I'm going to show you one of the things that I've done with folks. I encourage you to, if you really want to see how well a cleaner works with your soil, go down to your local glass shop and get a little piece of glass. And all you have to do is put some of the soil type that you're trying to clean or evaluate on that piece of glass, introduce the cleaner, and you can see how well the cleaner actually emulsifies the soil that you might have in your stores. So that's just a little tip that might be helpful to you. Okay, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to cleaners, but I'm going to give you a quick overview on what are called cleaner dilutions. Most of the cleaners in the industry are either going to be gallons or quarts. Gallon being 128 ounces and quarts being 32 ounces. There's some common dilutions. 1 to 128 would be 1 ounce to a gallon, all the way down to what is called an RTU, which is a ready to use. The next bullet point for you to keep in mind, there's a difference between the price of the product and the in-use cost, because the in-use cost is intended to be diluted with water. So just a couple things to keep in mind when you're evaluating the price or the cost of an item that you're currently purchasing. A couple suggestions. In the lower right-hand corner is a dispenser, and it's kind of like a soda machine. Some of you might have them in your stores. You put the concentrate in the dispenser, you push a button, and it automatically proportions the cleaner at the recommended dilution. You don't want to overlook reviewing the label from the manufacturer or the safety data sheet, which has all the safety information. And then the last bullet point, one thing you might want to consider is trying to standardize the cleaners that you use from one manufacturer. And that way, if you have an issue, you can go back to that manufacturer and address it with them. Okay, I'm going to touch on floor care because it does get a lot of attention, and with it being a horizontal surface, it's challenging to maintain. But some of the industry trends right now, horizontal surfaces are constantly changing. And right now, a lot of folks are gravitating just to straight concrete, putting a coating on it, or just cleaning it on a regular basis rather than going with vinyl or a flooring surface. With the changes in floor surfaces, I can't stress enough to make sure you keep your floor system current with the type of floor surface that you have in your buildings. And then last but not least, robotics are definitely entering the industry for cleaning floors. They are costly, but they can clean up to 40, 50, 60,000 square feet on one charge, and it is definitely a trend in the industry. And then the last thing to keep in mind on the floor care slide, if you ever walk a golf course, your aisleways are like your fairways, and then you have your checkout counters like your rough areas and your greens. You want to make sure you try to have the right type of equipment for the type of store that you have. Okay, I'm going to touch on, if you go back to that one slide where I had 90% of your overall budgets are spent on labor. And I want to touch on work loading. And work loading is basically a process of calculating out the costs and the processes relative to cleaning your store. But the process is basically determine what you're trying to do. You establish a frequency. You assign a frequency to each task. You calculate the hours, and you can come up with the total budget for the cost of cleaning the different surfaces. And I wanted to touch on this, but I wanted to let you know that there is software available that can help you project those costs for each of those processes. Touching quickly on software again, this is what is called an ROI calculator. And it's a very handy tool for calculating how long it takes for you to recoup on your dollar on an investment in equipment. Automatic scrubbers can run $15,000, $20,000. And I just wanted to mention that to you because that is available and it can be quite helpful in doing a financial analysis. Okay, my presentation changed from when I started developing this back in the early part of the year, and I thought it would be important to just touch on COVID-19 and how it's impacting our country and how it's impacting our areas where we shop. I'm probably not telling you anything new here, but there's definitely some supply chain challenges, in some areas where cleaning products are utilized. That's no different in the commercial products that you're using. I can tell you right now that everything from cleaners to spray bottles, sanitizers, they're all extended lead times. It's just incredible. I've never seen anything like it, but most of the manufacturers right now in the industry are working 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts to try to catch up with the demand. So if your distributor is saying they can't get a product, I would suggest that maybe try another distributor or another resource, but it's definitely a challenging time for manufacturers. The other aspect of the COVID-19 is definitely with cleanliness and the awareness of customers. Your frequencies of cleaning it's definitely going to have an impact. So getting employee engagement is going to be important. It's going to be a team effort to try to maintain a high standard. I want to touch on disinfectants and sanitizers because that's getting a lot of attention right now. I can't stress enough to read the label because that's the greatest source for information regarding the product and the ingredients. All disinfectants and sanitizers sold in the United States require an EPA registration. So that information should be on the container. Dwell time. If a manufacturer makes a claim against any type of virus or bacteria, there are requirements for the contact time where the cleaner comes in contact with the soil. And that can be upwards of 10 minutes depending on the disinfectant or sanitizer. I'm not sure if you've ever heard the term quats before, but quats are the germicide, the disinfectant that does the killing of bacteria that's in the disinfectant or sanitizer. Efficacy data is, if you go to the product information sheet, or the EPA registration site, they will provide you with the effectiveness of the disinfectant with the bacteria involved. And then the last thing to keep in mind is just remember you can't disinfect dirt. The other thing I wanted to mention to you, and I'm probably not telling you anything new, there's a lot of manufacturers and people scrambling for procedures and processes for their buildings. The best source of information is definitely the CDC. So just keep that in mind when you're developing your standards. The other area that I wanted to touch on related to COVID-19 innovation. And it's been quite interesting the last couple months. I've seen some innovation that it's kind of a new day relative to cleanliness and the procedures and the machines and supplies that are entering the market. But the receptacle on the left is, it has a bracket. The manufacturer is still working on it, but you can put supplies, sanitizer, towel dispensers on it. The woman in the middle, touch-free dispensers with hand sanitizers and a stand. Lead times right now on those types of dispensers can be anywhere from 2 to 3 months. There's a hand dryer up in the right-hand corner. This was recently introduced by a manufacturer. It actually has UV lighting in it, which they claim removes 99.9% of the bacteria from somebody's hands with a hand dryer. And then the item in the lower right-hand corner, pump sprayers, and company just recently introduced a electric misting unit with a applicator. So we're going to see a lot of change and a lot of new products enter the market in this area. So just to kind of conclude some things relating to the slides that I presented, some keys to developing and implementing a successful program. It definitely takes some leadership and everyone's engagement of all your employees. Unfortunately, it does take some investment, whether it's in equipment, supplies, or surfaces in the restroom. And historically, most organizations look at price, but if it's seen or touched by the customer, consider quality over price. And then the last thing to mention, a facility analysis. One of the programs that I offer is a facility analysis, just to give you an idea of some things that you might want to look at in your specific locations. I think this is my second to the last slide. I can't stress enough training, and this has always been one of my key components in teaching individuals, whether it's cleaning floors or utilizing a piece of equipment. But you remember 10% of what you hear, 30% of what you hear and see, 60% of what you hear, see, and do, and 90% of what you hear, see, do, and teach to someone else. And I think that the key takeaway with this slide is that with training, a lot of times it's just hearing and seeing, but if you can really get your employees engaged with the 60 and 90% levels, they're going to stand a much better chance of retaining what you're trying to teach them. So it's something to keep in mind, and you can never get enough training relative to the supplies, the equipment, and everything utilized. And then I think on my first slide, I said that I was an independent consultant. If I can ever be of assistance with any of your programs, if I don't have the answer, I'll try to point you in the right direction or to a company or organization that might be able to help you. So with that being said, I can't thank you enough for the time and opportunity. And if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
Thank you, Gary. That was a great presentation. I really appreciate it. And I know everyone enjoyed it that's on the call. I think our next